June 6, 1944. Omaha Beach. The ramp drops. 30 yards of open water stand between you and sand that's already red. German MG-42s are ripping through everything. Men are dying before their boots touch the seafloor. But today, something's different. The rifle in your hands isn't the M1 Garand your father might have carried. It's the XM7, the US Army's newest service rifle, straight from 2024. Let's ground ourselves in reality first. D-Day wasn't a movie. It was industrial slaughter conducted at point-blank range. The men who waited ashore at Omaha carried the M1 Garand, a semi-automatic rifle fed by an 8-round N-block clip. It was accurate, reliable, and by 1944 standards, it gave American infantry a genuine edge over bolt-action rifles. But the M1 had limits. 8 rounds, a distinctive ping when the clip ejected, iron sights that required real skill to use under stress. And the Germans weren't waiting politely. The MG-42, nicknamed Hitler's buzzsaw, could cycle 1,200 rounds per minute, from concrete bunkers sited to create overlapping fields of fire, against men crossing open beach with nowhere to hide. The average infantryman at Omaha wasn't thinking about strategy. He was thinking about the next piece of cover, the next breath, whether the guy next to him was still alive. So what happens if we give those same men, same fear, same chaos, same German guns, a weapon from 80 years in their future? Here's the scenario. One change, nothing else. Every Allied infantryman landing on D-Day is now equipped with the XM7 rifle and its standard issue XM157 optic. That's it. No drones overhead, no satellite communications, no Apache helicopters waiting offshore. The battleships are still firing the same shells. The tanks are still sinking in the channel. The paratroopers are still scattered across Normandy in the dark. Just the rifle. But before we see what that rifle does, we need to set some rules, because alternate history without constraints is just fantasy. Rule 1. Same soldiers, same training. These men know how to use the XM7 the way they knew the Garand. Competently, not expertly. They haven't spent years developing new doctrine around it. Rule 2. No modern logistics. They carried what they landed with. Resupply is still 1944 trucks and 1944 chaos. If they run out of 6.8mm ammunition, they run out. Rule 3. The weapon performs exactly as designed. No Hollywood buffs. It jams when it should jam. It's heavy because it's heavy. Recoil is recoil. Rule 4. German defenders don't know what's coming, but they're still dug into concrete, still behind pre-sighted machine guns, still fighting for their lives. With those limits in place, let's talk about what these soldiers are actually holding. The XM7, developed by Sig Sauer, entered US Army service in 2022 as the replacement for the M4 carbine. It fires a new cartridge, the 6.8 by 51mm, also called .277 Fury. This round is not a minor upgrade. It generates significantly higher chamber pressure than the 5.56 NATO, or even the old .30-06 used in the Garand. The result is a flatter trajectory, better penetration at range, and the ability to defeat modern body armor at distances where 5.56 starts to struggle. For our purposes, against 1944 Germans, that armor penetration matters less. What matters more is range and precision. The XM157 optic is the real force multiplier. It's a variable magnification scope with an integrated ballistic computer, laser rangefinder, and digital display. Point at a target, and the scope tells you where to aim. It compensates for distance, wind, even the shooter's wobble. A trained marksman with iron sights is dangerous. An average soldier with the XM157 can make shots that would have taken years of practice in 1944. But, and this matters, the XM7 is heavy, 8.5 pounds unloaded. Add the optic, a suppressor, and loaded magazines, and you're pushing 12 pounds. The Garand was about 10. That weight adds up when you're wading through surf, climbing seawalls, and sprinting across sand. The rifle also kicks harder than an M4. Soldiers in testing have reported genuine recoil fatigue. After 100 rounds, your shoulder knows it. So we have a weapon that's more capable at range, far more accurate for the average shooter, and meaningfully heavier and harder to handle under sustained fire. Now, let's see what happens when the ramp drops. The first minutes at Omaha were the worst. Men died in the water, on the beach, obstacles, screaming for medics who couldn't reach them. The XM157 doesn't change the first 30 seconds. You still have to get off the boat. You still have to survive the crossing. But once soldiers reach the shingle, that low ridge of rocks at the tide line, the rifle starts to matter. In real history, suppressing German machine gun positions from the beach was almost impossible. The MG-42 crews were inside concrete, behind narrow apertures, 400 yards uphill. Hitting them with iron-sighted Garands while under fire was a job for exceptional shooters or lucky shots. With the XM157 optic, that calculus shifts. A sergeant crouched behind a tank obstacle can now range a bunker aperture at 300 meters and put accurate fire on it. Not suppressive spray, actual aimed shots into the opening. The 6.8mm round doesn't care about the sandbags German crews sometimes stacked inside. It punches through. This doesn't kill every MG-42 crew instantly, but it forces them to duck. It disrupts their rate of fire. And in a fight where seconds determine whether men live or die crossing open ground, disruption matters. At the squad level, fire teams can now engage at ranges that previously required a designated marksman or a machine gun crew. The rifleman becomes more lethal, more independent. But capability isn't everything. Let's talk about where reality bites back. The XM7 weighs more, the ammunition weighs more, and the soldiers carrying them just spent hours on a pitching boat vomiting from seasickness before dropping into chest-deep water under fire. These men are exhausted before the fight even starts. Now add 2 extra pounds of rifle. Add magazines loaded with heavier cartridges, because 6.8 by 51 brass is not light. A combat load of ammunition that felt manageable on a training range suddenly feels like an anchor when you're trying to sprint across sand while someone shoots at you. Movement slows, fatigue compounds. The rifleman who might have made it to the seawall in real history now takes 4 extra seconds. Sometimes 4 seconds is everything. And there's recoil. Modern US Army testing showed that sustained fire with the XM7 produces noticeable shooter fatigue. Soldiers in 1944 weren't used to that. After the first 100 rounds, shoulders start to ache, accuracy degrades. The very advantage the weapon provides begins to erode under the stress of continuous combat. None of this makes the XM7 a bad weapon. It makes it a real one. There's probably a corporal somewhere on Easy Red sector, crouched behind a hedgehog, staring at his XM7 and muttering, "They couldn't have made this thing lighter?" What, were they worried the Germans wouldn't shoot at us hard enough? The Army's procurement decisions remain controversial across all timelines, it seems. But soldiers adapt. They always do. By mid-morning, the survivors on the beach are figuring it out. The optic changes how squads move. With reliable precision at range, leaders start spacing their men further apart, reducing the effectiveness of German artillery and machine gun bursts. A squad that might have bunched up behind a single piece of cover now spreads across 30 meters, each rifleman able to engage targets the others can't. Suppression becomes more effective. Instead of needing a bar or a light machine gun to keep German heads down, 2 or 3 riflemen with XM7s can achieve the same effect through sustained, accurate fire. Flanking maneuvers that would have been suicidal become merely dangerous. If the base of fire can actually hit what it's shooting at, the guys moving around the side have a better chance. Sergeants and lieutenants, the ones still alive, start directing fire more precisely. Third bunker from the left, the one with the broken sandbags, everyone on it, now. And their men can actually comply. This isn't revolution, it's evolution. Small advantages compounding across 1,000 individual firefights. But what about the other side? German soldiers at Normandy were experienced, well-trained, and fighting from prepared positions. They weren't going to panic because the rifles sounded different, but they would notice. MG-42 crews that expected to fire with relative impunity start taking accurate return fire through their apertures, not just from snipers, from ordinary riflemen. The suppression that American infantry could never quite achieve begins to land. Crews rotate faster, gunners go down, loaders take over and go down too. The sustained rate of fire that made the MG-42 so devastating starts to sputter as positions lose their experienced operators. This isn't a collapse. German infantry doctrine emphasized defense in depth, mutual support, and counterattack. They would adjust. But they'd adjust under pressure they didn't expect, taking losses they didn't anticipate, against riflemen who suddenly seemed to shoot like their grandfathers told them American sharpshooters did. Morale erodes, not instantly, not completely, but at the small unit level, the psychological math starts to shift. Still, there are things even a better rifle cannot solve. The beach at Omaha was sown with mines. Rifles don't clear mines. German artillery, pre-registered on every likely avenue of advance, was still falling. The 6.8mm round doesn't stop a 105mm shell. The concrete bunkers housing the heaviest guns required direct assault, demolition charges, or naval gunfire. A rifleman with the most advanced optic in history can't shoot through 6 feet of reinforced concrete. And the men carrying these weapons were still 1944 soldiers with 1944 small unit tactics. They didn't have 80 years of doctrine development built around exploiting their new capabilities. They'd figure things out on the fly, but they'd make mistakes. They'd miss opportunities. They'd sometimes win despite themselves. The XM7 makes better riflemen. It doesn't make better generals, better logistics, or better luck. So what's the actual outcome? Omaha Beach cost roughly 2,000 American casualties on June 6, 1944. Most of those happened in the first few hours. With the XM7, some of those men live. Not all, not even most, but the sectors where infantry successfully suppressed German positions and pushed through do so faster, with fewer losses. Strongpoints that held until afternoon fall by mid-morning. Units that were combat ineffective by noon still have enough men to maneuver. The beach is cleared perhaps 2 hours earlier. Follow-on waves land into less intense fire. The beachhead is marginally more secure by nightfall. This isn't victory. The Allies were going to win at Normandy regardless. The weight of materiel, air superiority, and strategic depth guaranteed that. But at the human level, at the level of individual soldiers and the families waiting for telegrams back home, maybe a few hundred men make it off that beach who didn't in our timeline. That's not nothing. And the ripples spread outward from there. Tactically, faster success at Omaha might accelerate the link-up between beach sectors. Troops push inland sooner. Some German counterattacks meet resistance they weren't expecting. Doctrinally, Allied commanders notice something. Rifle accuracy seems higher than anticipated. After-action reports start asking questions. Some bright staff officer begins connecting the dots. Meanwhile, German intelligence eventually captures an XM7. They can't manufacture the ammunition, can't replicate the optic, and probably can't even figure out the hybrid steel-brass cartridge cases. But they know something strange has happened. Reports filter up. Someone in Berlin starts a file. And paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st, who also carry the XM7 in this scenario, have been scattered across the Norman countryside all night with weapons they're still figuring out. Some of their rifles have been captured too. French resistance contacts report strange American equipment. The butterfly keeps flapping. Maybe the Germans try to reverse engineer what they've found. Maybe the Soviets, who will eventually meet the Americans on the Elbe, take note and request a closer look under Lend-Lease. Maybe some GI trades his XM7 for wine and a farmhouse meal, and 80 years later a French family owns the most confusing heirloom in Europe. Or maybe nothing much changes at all. The war ends on the same day, the same treaties get signed, and the only difference is a few thousand families who got their boys back instead of folded flags. Although, knowing Army procurement, someone in 1945 would probably write a memo suggesting they switch back to the M1 because it was lighter. Some traditions are eternal. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing. We do a lot of these what-if scenarios, grounded in real history and real capability. Hit the like button if you think this one held together. And let me know in the comments, what historical weapon swap do you want to see next? Different war, different tech, different outcome. I'm listening. Thanks for watching.